have you ever talked to each other? Have you ever heard the sound of each other's voices?
No.
We didn't even know what he looked like.
Don't you think that's weird? Like the neighbors.
Totally
I understand that it's not like it was in the past, but I mean, this is like taking it to a new extreme.
This is the plaintiff, Alan Zetting. He says he returned to his house one day and found one of his trees had been knocked down by a car. He comes to find a note from the defendant stating her daughter skidded and knocked the thing down. He replaced the tree with something comparable, has waited 3 years for the defendant to pay him, and now has to do what he has to do to get his money, sue. He's hoping the judge will see things his way in this open and shut case and award him the $502.25 he's owed. These are the defendants, Lisa Cowden and her daughter, Lindsay Tedder. Lisa says Lindsay slid on some ice in 2005, hitting the plaintiff's tree.
So this one, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas. Okay, Mr. Zetting, you are suing your neighbor Lisa Cowden and her daughter Lindsay Tedder for $502.25, the cost to replace a tree that you say you lost thanks to their negligence. Tell me what happened.
Okay, on January 20th, I was out of town for a couple of weeks, and I came back.
What year?
2005. I was out of town, and I came back and found a note on the door, actually, before I even noticed the tree was down. And the note was actually very nice. I have a copy of the note here.
Yeah, you kept it 3
Yes.
years? Okay, let's see. And the note says, sorry to report my daughter slid on the ice and lost control of her car this evening and in the process knocked over your tree. How big a tree was this?
I think about 13 feet ash, about 2 inches, 2.5 inches wide.
Two and a half inches wide.
Yes, I actually have a backyard. I actually have the bottom of the tree.
There we go. Wow. Please contact us to confirm and work out details. And then she puts, Lisa, how to pronounce your last name?
Cowden.
Cowden, new neighbor, and her address and phone number. Did you ever call them?
No, I was, and the note that I actually sent.
You were busy for 3 years?
Well, a couple months after that, I was actually very busy at that time, and I actually lost the note. And
but didn't you, like when you saw the note, didn't you figure out if that's the lady who lives in the White House or anything like that? Didn't you do the math in your head?
Correct.
Okay, so you knew how to walk.
Right.
How many houses down does she live?
One house over.
Okay, so it's not as though when you say you lost
Correct.
the note, that's not really relevant, is it? Because you know who it is. So did you ever talk to her?
No.
Okay, how come this is a lot more than 2 inches though. Okay, how come though? How come you guys don't talk to each other? Don't you see each other at all?
I'm sure I've probably seen her occasionally.
And what would you say to each other? Nice tree? Like, did anybody say anything? Anybody say, oh, thanks for the note. That was nice of you not to be a scam artist. It was good of you to be honest. Nothing, nobody talks, nobody says anything.
I work very unusual hours, and
So you didn't run into each other?
No.
Okay, but at some of those hours is daylight in your home and you don't knock on her door.
And I work from home.
And you work from home. All right, so then what happens? 3 years pass.
Well,
like, how do you work up the steam for a lawsuit if you didn't work up the steam before that?
Well, it was about that summer in July. I was actually having some trees replaced at work, and it dawned on me that I still needed my tree replaced at home.
It dawned on you that you still needed your tree replaced. It
Yes.
dawned on you because you saw trees being replaced at work.
Correct.
It dawned on you that you still needed your tree. What happened to the tree, by the way? Didn't you have to, like, get rid of it?
Yes, well, I actually, in that winter, it was almost completely broken off, and I just used an axe, gave it a couple whacks, and threw it in my backyard. I have a little gully.
Okay. All right, so then what happens? So it dawns on you 3 years later. 3 years later?
No, it's about 6 months. And
About 6 months after the knocking down?
roughly.
All right, and then what happens?
Well, I had the guy was replacing my tree at work. I said, oh yeah, by the way, I have this tree at home. I need the stump dug up, replaced, new tree installed. He came over, And he gave me an estimate for the height of the tree. He gave me an estimate of like $700-800. I'm like, I don't need to spend that much money on a tree. It's just, I just want a cheap shade tree because I want to kind of match everything else in the block. And we actually settled on it was about an 8-foot tree, which is actually a little bit shorter than the other one, and the price was about $480, not including tax.
Okay, did you actually pay it?
Yes.
Do you have proof of payment?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then when did you first ask Ms. Cowden to pay it?
Then the note, I have a note, I have the original note that I sent her as well.
Okay, and the original note that you sent her, let me see that. You sent that to her when?
It was about a month after the tree. We replaced the tree in July.
So there's no date on the note.
Correct.
It says, I'm sorry I didn't get a hold of you earlier to discuss this. I've been doing some remodeling. I can't find your original letter, and my work hours have been really long and weird lately. This is a company I use at my business, so they gave me a pretty good deal on the price. And then, so when she gets it, what does she say to you?
I never got a response from her.
And then what happened?
Well, it was about that next year where I actually found the letter again when I was doing my taxes, and I realized I hadn't been paid again.
So then every time you walk out, don't you see the darn new tree and say, oh, this lady still hasn't paid me? So now you find her letter,
Right.
original note, and that precipitates you making another attempt at contact?
Well, yes, I actually sent a copy of the first letter, and I put a note in there saying it's been over a year, there's something going on, can you contact me? I'd like to work this out.
And did she contact you?
And no.
Have you ever talked to each other? Have you ever heard the sound of each other's voices?
No.
No, we didn't even know what he looks like.
Don't you think that's weird? Like
I
your
think it's
neighbors.
totally
I
weird.
understand that it's not like it was in the past, but I mean, this is like taking it to a new extreme.
The whole court is like that. Nobody knows anybody. It's awful.
The whole block is like that? Nobody. Are they really big houses?
No.
No, they're all right there. You're all right on top of each other. Nobody like says howdy?
It's time to play Stump the Judge. Or is it? The testimony continues.
Why'd you just knock on the lady's door? She's so friendly. She left the note. She's like, I'm new neighbor. Why wouldn't you just walk over there?
We had just moved
It
in.
doesn't affect his case, though. You seem to think somehow that affects his case. I'm just curious. Inquiring minds would like to know what prevents you from taking. Are you just not a confrontational kind of guy, and you thought it would be confrontational?
The defendant creamed the plaintiff's trees 3 years ago. The weird thing is, these are neighbors who never met, never spoke, and just avoided an in-your-face situation for years. Let's listen.
What happened? What happened? What happened? What happened? What happened? You were driving.
I was driving. I was 22. It was January. We live in a court that's about a 90-degree angle from the original road that you turn off of to get to it. And they don't plow back there. So it was covered in ice. And I was really slow because I'm terrified. I've never been in a car accident. And I was turning my wheel and my car kept going straight. And I'm like turning, it kept going straight. So he had shoveled his driveway, so there's a pile of snow on each curb. And my car just kept going. I hit the snow and I completely took out the tree. But you couldn't even see the tree under my car. And I don't know how long cars are, but they're not 13 feet. It was a Malibu. So,
Okay, but you couldn't even see the tree
no,
because
you couldn't even see the tree on either end of my car after
Meaning it
you
was
didn't just
a
hit
small
the tree and knock it down. You
no,
ran
I was
over
on
the
top
tree
of it because
Oh
it
my
was
God.
it was so.
Are you sure you didn't have a little momentum there that wasn't
Well,
just ice-induced?
No, I mean I was only going like maybe 5-10 miles an hour because I'm terrified of that court because we just moved in
Do you
there.
live there?
Not anymore. I live in
But did you live there at
Cleveland.
the time?
Yes.
Okay, why didn't you just write the note if you were 22? Why would your mommy write the note?
Well, it wasn't like that. I had to call Triple. I was.
You were under the impression she was a minor at the time, right?
Yes.
Is that why you're suing her?
Yes.
Where'd you get the idea she was a minor?
Because the mother wrote the note.
Because he never knocked on my door.
No, I understand. He
I
never
don't know,
knocked
I
on your
was
door.
just, like, I had never been in a car accident. I've always been afraid of car accidents. I hit it. I was crying. I called my house. I could see it. I didn't know why I didn't get out of the car. I called my house crying, and I had to call AAA to get my car out because it was stuck in the snow.
So, but Ms. Tedder,
Yes.
why wouldn't you be responsible for replacing the tree? Just
I
because you
would've.
waited too long?
No,
Okay, but you would have,
we offered to replace it. I even went down, again. I'd never seen him outside. I kept looking. Everybody, I'm like, oh, I feel so bad. I took that guy's tree out. I'm gonna have to go buy a tree this summer and dig up the tree, I would have paid for it. I completely 100%
Okay, so, but
would
what's
have.
the reason you won't pay for it now? Why are we in court? Go
Well,
ahead. Your
I
mom,
left-
if your mom needs to speak up for you, I'll let her. Go ahead.
I
Mom.
left the note, and I never heard anything. A week later, we left another note. Never heard anything. A year or two later, I don't know when it was, he left something in my mailbox. And when I saw this bill for $500 and some, I was like, oh my gosh, she never even came down to talk to me. I'm not paying that much money for this tree.
What makes you think that it would be cheaper?
Well, I have some estimates.
Let me see your estimates.
And plus, I would totally do it myself.
Well, but you say that as though you have a right. No, give it to Douglas, please. You say that as though you would have a right to, quote, totally do it yourself.
Well, we didn't talk about anything. I guess I was wrong in assuming that he would knock on my door or pick up the phone.
Well, clearly, now that we know him a little better, you were clearly wrong in assuming that.
And then we could just work out the details.
Why don't you just knock on the lady's door? She's so friendly. She left the note. She's like, I'm new neighbor. Why wouldn't you just walk over there?
We had just moved
Seriously,
in.
it doesn't affect his case, though. You seem to think somehow that affects his case. I'm just curious. Inquiring minds would like to know what prevents you from taking. Are you just not a confrontational kind of guy, and you thought it would be confrontational?
I've been told that I can't be confrontational. And
That you can be?
Yes.
You don't look confrontational. You don't sound confrontational. You don't act confrontational.
And looking back at it now, it's like, I don't really think I did anything wrong, but can you always do things more right? I think I probably should have.
Yeah, you know, we have a saying in Spanish, la gente hablando se entienden. And I never quite put a lot of importance to that, but people speaking actually understand each other. You wouldn't be here if you guys had actually talked to each other like human beings.
We have a saying in the law, give her the electric chair. Will the plaintiff get $502? Judge Milley on rules next. And welcome back to the People's Court. Harvey Levin outside the Times Square Information Center. Does she have a right to say, hey, I'll just buy the tree and plant it myself? You don't have to go buy one.
No, it should be a tree of his choice. It's his house, as long as it's of the equivalent value.
What do you think? I mean, can she cheap it out and say, I'm going to do it myself?
Not at all.
Why?
Just because it's his yard, you know, he should do whatever he wants. You know?
Yep.
Why can't they just go together and she can see what he's buying and they can both see?
Does he have to get her approval?
Yeah, because it's her money. He could pick something that's not what he used to have before that costs more.
Okay, we'll find out. Okay, going inside the courtroom.
All right, let's talk about a few things here. All right, I asked you to show me, oh yes, and you showed me, in fact, a check where you had paid for that amount for that size tree. You have brought me removal of tree stump and replacement of ash tree or similar. One that says $168, complete tree removal and tree install, and doesn't tell me what kind of tree, $149. What kind of tree was that, by the way?
It was an ash. I'm not that good. Originally, I thought it was an elm, but it's actually an ash. I'm not sure what type of ash.
Now, the problem with your invoice, of course, one doesn't say what kind of tree, so I can't trust, and the other one doesn't say what size tree, because there are trees and there are trees. What size tree did you replace?
I actually have a picture of the old tree next to the new tree, and I actually brought leaves.
How do you have a picture of the old tree next? Oh, you mean two pictures.
I threw it in my backyard, and it was sitting there. And I actually have leaves from my tree to compare to the other trees in the neighborhood, if you like to look at that.
In other words, what you're trying to prove to me is that you replaced it with a small. You actually put the old tree next to the. He meant exactly what he said. You came out and you put the old tree next to the new tree. Is that what I see?
Yes.
Old tree leaning next to new replacement tree. Now, when you say old tree, you just mean
the trunk.
The bark or the trunk of the tree.
Right.
Because, of course, by then the leaves are all dead.
Correct.
Okay, and it's almost double the size. So in other words, you know, there's no depreciation like with other things, like with cars and clothes that a cleaner's ruins. There's depreciation. There's appreciation of a tree because it gets bigger. Okay, so he actually replaced it with a smaller tree. And then the estimates that you bring me don't talk about a size of a tree. So your estimates aren't going to hold water next to his estimates because of that. One doesn't even talk about the type of tree, and the other one talks about the type of tree, but not the size of the tree. Okay, and that's a big difference in tree buying and tree planting. And he has a right not to go to the most expensive place in town, but to pay the fair market, but to get repaid the fair market value. In other words, if he replaced it instead with a 20-foot tree, well, actually his is probably 20 feet. If he replaced it with some mature, beautiful tree that's much more expensive, he doesn't have a right to have you do that. I find that the $502.25 is fair. I find it fair. And I find that Ms. Lindsay Tedder is, in fact, responsible for the $502.25 verdict for the plaintiff.
Thank you.
Well, first let's talk to the defendant side of things here. And so he gets everything he sued for. Okay, what's your feeling coming out of the courtroom here?
I mean, no communication for 3 years and we're in court, but
That's pretty weird, no communication for 3 years, huh?
2 doors down.
It takes two to tango, though.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, so you're half of that.
We left notes. I mean,
No, it's nice. So
well, he's
have you
never home.
Have you ever talked to the guy?
Never.
No,
never
we didn't even know what he
seen him.
looked like.
And you live right next door, right?
2 doors,
one
doors
house
down.
away.
All right. You want to meet him?
We did.
He seems like a nice guy. What? You still don't want to talk to him?
I don't live there anymore, so it doesn't bother
All right,
me.
head right down there. Just head right down there.
Oh.
They don't want to meet you.
That's their choice. I'd like to meet them. They seem nice.
You would like to meet them.
Yeah, I know all my neighbors.
Wow.
I help them out. They help me.
Well, how come this is the situation with this particular neighbor?
I don't know. I thought I was just being nice by sending them the note. I think I left the note in their mailbox. I walked it over there. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I work a lot of weird hours, unusual hours. I didn't want to be mean.
You
by
think you
going
guys
over.
maybe can put this behind you and...
I would hope so.
You gonna try?
I would hope so. Sure. I'll help anybody.
Over to Harvey.
Neighbors.
Okay, Kurt. Sorry to beg to differ here. However, she does not have the right to dictate what tree he gets. As long as what he does is reasonable in terms of money, it's his decision, not her decision, on what tree he gets on his property. And that will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case on the way into the courtroom right now.